Here with me in the studio to give his verdict is Husam Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador to the UK. Ambassador, very good to see you there. What is your verdict about what Cameron has said? Is this a big moment?
Well, I have to say my verdict is similar to yours. This is a very significant moment. This is the first time UK Foreign Secretary does say that recognition of the State of Palestine is not linked to a final agreement with Israel, i.e. finally removing Israel's veto over Palestinian statehood. Going back to your introduction, that veto is very solid. Netanyahu and all previous governments have not want to accept the very idea of a Palestinian state. That's number one. Number two,
sorry, just before you get on to number two, you make it sound historic.
It is historic. It is historic because the whole Palestinian cause agony has started in this very city, in this very country. It is historic because it was a lord before him, his predecessor, Lord Balfour, who promised our land without consulting us, that moment of colonial arrogance, whereby we as a people were cancelled in these 67 words by Lord Balfour. We were no longer a nation. In these 67 words, Lord Balfour said that the Jewish state that will be established in Palestine have to respect the rights of the non-Jewish minorities. We, the natives of the land who have lived there for millennia, Andrew, the birthplace of Christianity, the cradle of civilizations, the hub between East and West, we were reduced to just non-Jewish minorities. You have a foreign secretary, the Cameron Declaration, that says that recognition of the State of Palestine is not linked to a bilateral process between Palestinians and Israelis, and that it is a Palestinian right, effectively, and it is a UK responsibility, is a historic moment.
And he uses the word irreversible as well.
Yes, he did.
He said, you know, he wants now to start to envisage what a Palestinian state might look like. Now, there are difficulties here as well, of course. I've spoken a couple of times to Mark Regev, the Israeli spokesperson, who says that he envisages a state which is, as it were, a bit less than a state. In other words, they would not accept a Palestinian state which was able to defend itself, which had a military. How would you feel about that idea?
The Mark Regevs of the day and all Israeli mouthpieces are reframing occupation. They're just rebranding what occupation, colonization, control, subjugation means, which means less of an state. They want to continue controlling the Palestinian areas, call it a state, but it's a Mickey Mouse state. That's what they have in their head.
Yes. So no Mickey Mouse state. What happens to Israeli settlers in the West Bank if there is a Palestinian state, which I assume would have to include all of the West Bank?
Well, just a couple of hours ago, the UK Foreign Office issued an official statement saying that all these settlements are illegal. Those are very well defined in international law as war crimes. You cannot transfer your population into the occupied territory and in the process ethnically cleanse the inhabitants of the land. Now, because they are illegal, the overall idea is that they have to go, like Israel did dismantle settlements in Sinai during the peace treaty with Israel, in south of Lebanon, in Gaza before. So we shouldn't.
I understand that. Is there any possibility of a mutual transfer agreement of some kind, do you think, where Palestinians could go back to the lands that they had been on before the Israelis took them, and Israeli settlers could carry on living where they are? In other words, that both Israel and a future Palestinian state had substantial minority populations from the other?
The state of Palestine will be, like all other states, welcoming any people who want to come and live legally in the state of Palestine. But those people cannot be living on stolen land. Any state would have judicial system, would have courts and judges. And if a judge finds that settler to have been living on a privately owned land, they will rule that that person has to be evicted. We don't want to go through that process. However, any person who want to apply, like you do in the UK, for a residency, wants to live, wants to practice or invest, wants to do business, ahlan wa sahlan, as we say, they're welcome.
Do you accept that none of this can happen until Hamas is eradicated? Because I have spoken to Jewish people who are absolutely terrified of continuing to live along a border where Hamas are on the other side.
They should be terrified of the continuation of a situation that lasted for for 75 years. They should
but
be
they're
terrified.
especially terrified about Hamas.
Hamas is not the reason why we have a conflict. Hamas is an outcome of the conflict. So is many other Palestinian political factions. To think that everything will end once you end one of the Palestinian political factions is really rather naive. We need to think about the root causes, and the Israeli public need to realize that they have to come up with a final sort of conclusion that they cannot have the cake and eat it too.
And if we are at the very beginning of a process towards a Palestinian state, how important are the Arab countries in the area? How important are the Egyptians and the Jordanians and indeed the Saudis in making it happen?
Very important, and all these actors have been trying their best. There is a regional pact called the Arab Peace Initiative, it's a Saudi initiative, whereby should Israel ends its occupation of Palestinian and Arab land that began in 1967, the entire Arab world, and with it the entire Muslim world, 57 states will immediately normalize with Israel. Israel will become a state in the region. There will be cooperation, economic and what have you. The issue is Israel has placed its occupation and expansion above any other consideration. That's a fact. And never this Arab Peace Initiative was picked by any Israeli government. So the Arab world now is repackaging that, representing that in a way that would be hopefully picked by the Israeli public.
And David Cameron has been talking directly in the same room with Benjamin Netanyahu, presumably including about this. So he knows how steely Netanyahu is on this subject. Do you believe this is an impossible dream so long as Benjamin Netanyahu is Prime Minister of Israel?
And also it will be an impossible dream so long as the international community does not come with a stick. And I mean by a stick, an ability to enforce, an ability to impose sanctions, an ability to support accountability. Without all those, carrots only did not work for a long time and shall not work. We need to make sure that all parties are aligned with international law, respect and uphold international law, and if they don't, accountability is waged. That's why the ICJ and The Hague and what happened last week was historic, because for the first time, Israel now officially on trial for genocide. We need to make sure that the law is upheld.
We don't have an awful lot of time, Ambassador Zomlot, but can I ask one final thing? If this is the beginning of a process with David Cameron beginning to lead it, surely the crucial question is what America now does. The next bit has to go to Washington.
No, that's why I think it was very significant and historic, because it started in London. Because while America is needed to be on the table, America cannot be the only player on this. It cannot continue having a monopoly of this and excluding any others. This conflict and this issue is much bigger than one actor. And America has proven to be unable to play the role of an honest, neutral mediator for reasons you know, Andrew. Israel in America is not a foreign policy issue. It's a domestic issue.
Always has been.
Yes,
always has been. Indeed.
We need the UK, we need Europe, we need China, we need South Africa, we need the world, we need Brazil to help America get to its own goals.
A big day for Palestinians. Ambassador, thank you very much for coming in.